This is the orientation video for testing events. It's for the test-only events as well as the first-round test events. Here's a list of the events that are included in this particular orientation. The first column are the test-only events. They are one round. The student takes a test. Once they are finished, that is it for their competitive event. The Scantrons go back and the machine will determine the winner. The second column are the first round test events. So these are actually 2 rounds for that competitive event all total. Some of these events, the test is added to their final skill score for the final placement, and some of them it is not. For example, HOSA Bowl, the test is used to move forward the top 8 teams, but then they start over at that point, and it is a tournament type finish. But with veterinary science, the test portion is added to the total score for the skilled portion in order to determine final placement. You need to look at your guidelines to see how this affects your event. Please refer to the top portion of the teacher assignment sheet or to the one-page conference schedule to see when your event time is. The location of your event will be on the teacher schedule or the teacher assignment sheets. Keep in mind there may be more than one event testing in the same room. I do not believe we have more than 2 testing in the same room. Most all of them have the same time on the test. There is one set of tests where we have different times. One is 60 minutes, one is 90 minutes. I just could not work it out to where you could be in rooms by yourself, so I do apologize for that. In test events, there are no judges. All of the scoring is done through Scantron. In preparation for your event, the most important thing to do is print your guidelines and review them. Read over them several times and just make sure you are familiar with what is allowed in that particular event. If you are the event manager, your job is to coordinate the event, to make sure that every job is covered and to make sure the guidelines are followed. You will also be the one that picks up the binder and any supplies at event orientation. Be prepared to ask any specific questions you have about your event at the orientation. If you are event personnel, you are assisting with the event. It is also your job to make sure that it flows well, that every job is covered. But the event manager and the event personnel will work very closely together to make sure this event is carried out in the best way possible so that our students have a wonderful experience. Event personnel does not come to orientation. You go directly to your event room. For all of our testing events, your room should be set up in what's called a schoolroom set, which are rows of tables and chairs. You should have 3 to 4 chairs at each table. Our goal is to have no more than 3 students at a table, but in every one of the rooms we're not able to meet that goal. Some have to have 4. If there is room for a table and chairs for the teacher, there'll be one of those at the head of the room. If there's not, there will be some chairs in the room for the teachers. There's also going to be a table and chairs outside the door that will assist you in getting the kids in the room in an organized manner, and it will also allow somewhere for an event personnel to sit to maintain the hallways. It is also important that you have watched the event binder orientation. It is on the Health Science YouTube page and the links are located on this slide. This tells you what's in your binder, where to find it, how to use your binder in order to work the flow of your event. It also has your resources and it tells you where they are and how to use those. Please make sure each advisor, whether you're in the manager position or the personnel position, that you have gone online and completed the confidentiality form. This link was sent out to you several weeks ago, and there also is a colored sheet of paper in your registration packet that has the link on it. but it is important that we maintain the confidentiality of our events. And this just assures that in the future, we still have equity across our events. And just to do a little synopsis of it, advisors are not allowed to access or view the test while you're in those events. Advisors nor students are allowed to enter or observe any other events other than your assigned event or one that you're working. Students should not be allowed access to the event rooms until it is their time to be in that room. Pictures should not be taken of any test or test questions, and tests should not be removed from secure locations. Headquarters is a secure location, and your event rooms should be secure locations. They are counted and numbered before they go to your room. You need to count them before you bring them back to headquarters, and then headquarters will count them again to make sure that we have all of them back. That's the only way that we can just make sure that nobody is getting a jump on the competition for next year. If for any reason the event manager cannot attend orientation, please let me know as soon as you possibly can, because we don't have anybody else set up to come get the supplies for your event. And it is very important that we have somebody come pick these up and count the test and get them back to the room for the students. If for any reason you are not able to fulfill that duty, let me know as soon as you possibly can. I can't stress that enough. Once everybody's in the room together, just work together to see what is your plan for getting students in the room, for making sure they're where they're supposed to be, for calling roll, getting them their Scantron sheets, checking the guidelines and the dress code, handing out the test, reading the instructions, timing the test. What is your plan for doing those things? My suggestion is to use that table outside your door. If your Scantrons are in alphabetical order, it would be really easy to call those students by name, have them come in by alphabetical order. You can have someone else in the room. Once they go past your table, they can go in the room and be seated. You do want to make sure that team members don't sit together, but you can also have another person at that table that as you're calling the roster and you're getting them in and making sure it's the correct student and that they're where they're supposed to be, that other person is looking at the dress code very discreetly and checking for the guidelines. Keep in mind, if it's a team event, they only need one set of guidelines. And the guidelines absolutely can be on their phone. Now, there is not free Wi-Fi in that part of the hotel. So if they don't have it downloaded on their phone, or they don't have their own data and they can't show it to you, they don't have it. And that's a very hard thing to look at a kid and say, but this is something that we have sent out before. If there's a dress code violation, don't say anything to the student. Just grab another member of your team and just discreetly ask them to look at that student's dress and see, do they feel it meets dress code? If you agree that it doesn't meet dress code, then absolutely mark it on the roster so that those points cannot be given to that student or that team. If any one member of the team does not meet dress code, the team does not get the points for that. If you are not sure if it meets dress code or not, then refer to your dress code sheet that is in your binder. It includes pictures. If you're still not sure, give it to them. Err on the side of the student. They have worked hard to get here. They have passed qualifying events to get here. If it's iffy, let them have it. Once you've got them checking in and they're going into the room, again, instruct the team members not to sit together. And once you have them all in and you're beginning to give instructions, make sure that part of your instructions include the cell phone or smart device. Those are supposed to be turned off and face down on the table. And I don't care if this is a phone or a watch or whatever they might be wearing or have. The only time you will document the cell phone on the roster or the smart device on the roster is if there is a violation. If that phone or watch makes any sound, if it vibrates, that is a violation. If they touch it anytime during their event, that is a violation. Personal items should be underneath their chair, and they can pick those up on their way out, but otherwise they should not touch them. When you hand the test out, I would suggest handing them out face down and just instructing them not to view the test until they're told to do so. There is a directions page in your binder that has exactly what you are supposed to say to the students taking a test. If you have more than one test in the same room, these instructions should be the exact same page. So it is perfectly fine if only one person reads them and reads them to the entire group. Answer any questions the students have before you begin. Make sure they know how much time they have, and then start the timer and begin the test. Once they are finished, they can bring their test and their Scantron up to you, collect their personal belongings, and leave. They are good to go at that point. Just a little bit of additional information and reminder. If you are doing one of the 2-round events where this test is their first round, make sure you have reviewed the guidelines and you know whether or not this test is added to their second round score for final placement. You need to be able to let them know one way or the other if their event or if this test is also going to be used for final placement. If your tables have tablecloths, please instruct the students to put their Scantron on top of their test to bubble it in. Otherwise, it's very possible that the pencil will puncture through the test, and this could cause a problem with the test reading correctly in the machine. On tests that require a writing portion, make sure the student writes their name on their test, and then have the student complete that portion on the test packet itself. But make sure their name is on that test packet. Remind them that the top 6 competitors will be posted to the Alabama HOSA website. It should be a link from the home page, and they need to keep checking there to see if they are moving on. For HOSA Bowl, it is actually the top 8 competitors because it is a tournament style at the end, so it requires 8 to move forward with that. If you yourself, as the event manager or personnel, have cell phones, or as a judge, if you have cell phones, they should be off or in airplane mode. If you are using them as a timer, you can put them in airplane mode and the timer will still work. But please let the students know that you have your cell phone out because you are using it as a timer. We do want to set an example here, and we want to make sure that their competitive event is our main focus while we're in there. If you have a student that arrives late for their test, orient them outside the room so that we are not distracting the other competitors, and then allow them to test. We're not going to stop a kid from testing if they were running late for some reason, but they do not get any additional time. Whatever time is left in that event is the time they have to complete their test. If you have a student show up to test that is not on your roster, first thing, make sure the kid's in the right place. Maybe they're in pharmacology, but they showed up to the patho room. So just make sure they're in the right place. If they assure you they are, then give the kid a test, give them a blank Scantron, and let them fill out the top portion of the Scantron. We do have blank Scantrons in headquarters if you need some, but allow them to test. Once it gets back to headquarters, we'll see that their name is written in on the roster, and we'll double check to make sure that they were actually registered for that event. But we'll handle that portion in headquarters. As long as we keep the goal in mind, I think we will have a good quality state leadership conference. Our goal is to set an example of high standards and integrity for our students. We want to provide fair and equitable competitions, and we want them to learn and display the leadership qualities that they're going to need to be successful in the future. We have to be the example of that, so we need to conduct the events as we would like others to conduct events for our own students. When your event is complete, you'll go back to that front pocket of that binder and look for the event check sheet. Just complete that. It will help make sure that you have collected back up everything that you need to. It'll tell you the things that need to go in the front binder pocket. Go ahead and look at the bottom of it and take just a minute for everybody to sit down, think about that event. How did it go? What parts went well? Where did you have some challenges? And just take a minute and write that in for us on this sheet. I promise you, we look at these sheets when we're planning the events for the next year, and we do our best to get rid of any challenges that you found. So help us here by filling that out. If everything was fine, you can write everything was fine, but just let me know that you sat down, you thought about it, and we had it right, or there's some things we need to change. And then bring that and the binder and any supplies back to headquarters to check it in. Thank you so very much.